What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another stream here on the FTN Network YouTube channel. All that great stuff. Adam Pfeifer with Eddie Fear. I don't know. Is this live with Fast Eddie? Is it FTN NBA Live? Is it Dream Stream? Whatever it is, it's basketball talk. And happy to be here, Eddie. What's going on? We got here's the question: are we going to get a competitive game?
Wouldn't it be nice?
It's been insane.
Yeah, I like in the entire multiple 7-game series. Like we had the 2 7-game Sunday where we had the Bucks and Celtics finishing up and the Mavs and the Suns finishing up. And of those 14 games, there was one that was competitive down the stretch. One in 2 7-game series. There was one game that was like up in the air with a minute to go in a reasonable way is outstanding. And especially in later rounds of the playoffs, like frequently in your 1-8 and 2-7 matchups, you do get some absolute playoff beatdowns. But usually the second round of the playoffs ends up being fairly close. You have some tension. You don't have one team absolutely dominating the other one like this. But yeah, tough beat. So yes, it would be really nice if in one of these games, and it's not like, it's funny because it's not like Vegas is projecting these all as 18-point games. They're 5-6-point games that just cannot stay. So a lot of it is small sample size, but yeah, very depressing for me, honestly, because I was super looking forward to these playoffs, and only a little while in did I look around and be like, geez, this has been really ass, hasn't it?
Yeah, like the Memphis-Minnesota series was pretty good.
Yeah, the best series. I think that I would say is the only series that was better than my expectations.
Right, like I'm trying to think back of some of the other first round series.
Like Boston was just, that to be fair, probably had the lowest. I know it through 3 games at least, the differential is very small. I would not be surprised if you looked up NBA playoff sweeps in history if the point differential in that one was way towards the bottom.
That's why it was interesting too. Every time talking about that series, it was like, oh, Durant hasn't really shown up yet, but Brooklyn's kept every game close. So when he shows up, like things can get real interesting, and it just didn't happen. And yeah, I don't see how this continues with these blowouts, but it's been dating back to like the end of the first round series. Like it's been, or the second round series. It's been crazy. So hopefully we have a close game tonight.
Obviously in the Eastern Conference Finals, we're through 2 games and 2 basically serious ass whoopings.
Not even close.
And the first game of that. So yeah, we're through 3 conference finals games. I've really enjoyed a lot of the basketball too. I was really excited for this series specifically in the West because there's so much chess work there, and Kidd had done such an incredible job. A little too much so, actually. Like they were fined, and Jay Kidd was like, I wonder why we were fined. And I kept alluding to the fact that Jason Kidd was basically moving onto the court, which you're not allowed to do as a coach. Yeah. Like he was half playing defense, and he's just standing there yelling out the defenses. Like he's basically playing defensive point guard. So it was very interesting that they actually caught the fine for that, I think, that night. So that's a little interesting what's going on there. But I was really looking forward to this series, and even the first game, which we'll get into, had a lot of nuances. So I'm actually looking forward to tonight's show quite a bit.
Yeah, I was literally just gonna swing it to. Obviously, we have Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals between Dallas and Golden State. I was just gonna swing it right to you. Like, what stood out to you from watching Game 1, and what are you looking for? At least, what are some of the most important things you're looking for heading into Game 2 for fantasy aspects, but also just kind of real life, and how we can kind of, if we can gather and take away anything from Game 1, because obviously that game got out of hand, after halftime as well.
Yeah, it went largely how I thought it would, excepting the fact that Kleber got in a lot of foul trouble. So I was a big fan of Maxi Kleber. I'm an even bigger fan tonight. He's going to be low owned, and when they can't play Maxi Kleber, they have to play Dwight Powell most of the time. They can play Dorian Finney-Smith at center. They did not in that game. I don't know if that was right. I think I would rather do that. Instead, they ended up with lineups where you would have like Powell and Ntilikina on the court at the same time, and that just makes your offense impossible. So because you just can't stretch it all. Like Kleber is the guy who really unlocks the alpha version of this team, where you go 5 out, and they get very, very difficult to defend. So I am still a gigantic Maxi Kleber fan. I think he is under-owned. He was under-owned in Game 1. I obviously hope he does. And he played poorly. Like of his 3 fouls in whatever it was, 7 odd minute in the first half, two of them are really dumb fouls. So like he deserves some criticism for that. But again, their goal is to play him 28, 29 minutes. So assuming you are building this like a competitive game, and again, they did not play these guys 0 minutes, even in a game that was pretty decided beginning to end. Like Clay got up to 35, which is a pretty bad idea. I don't know, but by a bad idea, I mean really the way they handled. There's so much to talk about. So there's the whole Luka Wiggins thing, which I could spend
I was definitely interested in that because he definitely got the assignment for the most part, which.
Yeah, and he understood the assignment.
He's been really good. Like I know we have the jokes about the All-Stars. He's been really good. The fact that he's their 4th best player, sometimes 5th best player, is kind of outrageous given how good this. Like it's just he should not be a 4th or 5th best player on a team, but he has been. Maybe you can make the case he's better than Clay right now, but it's just insane how loaded they are.
Yeah, and
he helps with that.
It is an interesting question when you say what does better mean. Again, I had a famous debate on the channel not that long ago where I said that Draymond was more important to this team on offense than Jordan Poole.
Absolutely. It's not even close.
I understood that. And let me tell you, I got a couple of people lambasted me for that, but it's not even a question, if for no other reason than how much more replaceable Jordan Poole's skill set is. And we're not even going to get into defense and the rest of it there. But Clay had a very interesting, I don't know where to start with this. There's so much to talk about. So Clay had a very interesting case of gravity, where they spent a lot of time not letting Clay shoot. And I think this is an appropriate strategy. And again, it was one of the reasons that I forecasted a difficult match. Like Clay is my biggest under tonight easily. He had a bad game 1 and got there in lots of weird freak stats and was still significantly owned and will be significantly owned again tonight. And I would want 0. He took 4 3-pointers. 4. He did not score in the first half. He ended up shooting 1 of 4 from 3. Got a nice shot in there. But they were double teaming him a ton. Their theory being you just don't let him take a 3. You can't really run that sort of action that they were running against Clay, against Jordan Poole or Steph Curry, because they will beat you off the dribble and make you seriously pay for that. If you stop Clay from taking threes, he's not as adept normally at taking advantage. Now, Clay deserves a lot of credit for still turning in a very good game and operating very well from within the arc. He ended up shooting, if I'm remembering this right, 6 of 9 on some really tough shots from 2-point range. There have been a number of times recently where his shot selection has been concerning. If you're a Golden State fan and you know basketball and you're watching these games, there have been a number of times in this postseason where Clay would take a shot and your reaction should have been, ooh, I don't know if that's the look we were going for there with 11 left on the shot clock. Clay went, I believe it was 6 of 9 from 2. Again, entirely in the second half. But this is a team, again, there is nothing good about this matchup for Clay. And now he's on less rest, by the way. Again, an interesting comment last time from the Peanut Gallery was that Clay's offense is so based on 3-pointers that he'll do more with the rest. It's one of the strangest things I've ever heard in my life. I'm an old man, so if I don't get enough rest, yes, I can actually get tired taking 3-pointers, but for an NBA athlete, taking 3-pointers is the easiest form of offense or defense or anything on a basketball you can do and requires less rest. If you said to me, Jesus Christ, I don't know if De'Aaron Fox or Russell Westbrook or Derrick Rose can run 600 miles an hour because they're not rested enough, I would go, that makes sense. Or this is a huge energy guy who's just flying around the court on defense and constantly moving without the ball. So I think, he needs the extra rest. That would make sense. Being like his offense is entirely threes, he needs more rest, is, to my understanding of basketball and physics and energy consumption, the opposite of the truth. But I would play 0 Klay Thompson tonight. It's tough to get an edge. He was visibly frustrated because he got doubled frequently. Like they were putting a ton of attention on him. He had 0 points in the first half. They played him just about as late as anyone else. He sat. God, he played, I think, probably 17 minutes in the third and fourth quarter. They sat him for, I think, just about a minute and a half with about 3 minutes left in the third quarter and played through. He came out slightly earlier than, let me get this right. I think
he played the entire second and sat for
90 seconds of the third, I would think, ballpark. Because, all right, so Steph and Looney played the entire third and did not come back in the fourth.
Yep.
Clay sat like a minute and a half of the third, but played like 4 or 5 minutes into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, he
I
played about 5 minutes into the fourth. Yeah.
I just watched their game for the third. So he ended up with more minutes than I think all these guys. I think he got 35 minutes of Clay, which is a little odd, but good for him. Put up 15 points in the second half. But like, there's nothing good about this for Clay. Nothing. The individual matchup, the group matchup, the team propensities, the amount of threes that the Mavs give up, the amount of...
Say he took 4 threes. That was the fewest he's taken in a game this season. Not too surprisingly.
This is exactly what I expected. And for all of you, the good news is people will donkey play this again today, because he had a decent fantasy game. Not a good one, but he ended up with 30-odd fantasy points because he got, I think it was 5 rebounds. That's more than you should expect.
2 blocks.
4 assists. That's more than you should expect. 2 blocks. That's more than you should expect. Played a couple more minutes than he should have. Shot 6 of 9 from 2 on some really difficult shots. Like, you're not dead. If this was a normal slate, would I say play 0 Klay Thompson? No, I wouldn't. Does he have a chance of getting there? Absolutely. Of course he does.
Also doesn't get to the free throw line very often to kind of combat the
we'll
lack
talk
of
about
threes.
free throws in a second.
What is going on?
He missed 3 of his first 4. I don't even understand. But anyhow, so the point is not to make it a personal thing, but the best edge on tonight's slate is playing under on Klay Thompson. Your out, if you play Klay, is the Mavs got their ass kicked, and so they change up their defense significantly this game, which is very possible. So that's why, like, if someone's like, I still want to play Klay, that's fine. But if they guard him the same way, it's a donkey play. It is a terrible, terrible.
Dallas also regular season numbers, at least, which obviously it's they're still playing similar defense, and it's obviously a larger sample. But they allowed like the 4th lowest field goal percentage to shooters off screens. So like that's not great for Klay. Yeah. Not exactly great for Curry either.
Frequency. Like, keep in mind, one of the stats that associates most highly with winning games in the National Basketball Association is the percentage of your shots that you take from threes. Like, the number of threes you take relative to twos is a strong indicator. Look how many threes the Warriors took in that game and how many threes Dallas took. I don't know it offhand, but I would say it was like 50 to 30 in a game that the Warriors crushed them in. They took probably 20 less three-pointers.
Dallas only allowed, I think, 31% of the points during the regular season against them to come from 3. It was the 2nd lowest rate. So, like, they do a good job of, even in this series. Like,
Curry do an excellent job. So it's very weird for me to recommend something like this because it's extreme. But yes, probably the most important thing I would do tonight is play 0 Klay Thompson. You need them to A, significantly adjust the defense, and B, do so in a way that massively benefits him, where they go like, oh, okay, we're now more worried about pick a guy. And it's difficult for them to do that because of their personnel. And this leads me to talk about the Luka and Wiggins thing for a little bit. So Luka and Wiggins were tied at the hip on both ends of the court. And Wiggins
just makes me want to play Wiggins more than Klay, and too. Like, just
sure. I said this quote, and I've been noticeably critical of Jordan Poole, who was targeted but had a very good offensive game. Shot, I think, 8 of 12 from the field. You're not going to get that frequently. Was targeted some, only got 26 minutes. Like, the warning signs are there, and I'll say the same thing now that I said before game 1. I would much rather play Jordan Poole than Klay Thompson. It's just not as like Klay needs to. Like, Klay had an outstanding game considering what they did to him, and still wasn't good. And Klay's not cheap either. Klay's like $1,100 more than Klay's 75, Poole's 64, Wiggins is 6 flat. I think are the DK prices, depending on the slate structure, what have you. So, I would just, like, Klay's still going to be 30-40% owned. I think those people are probably paying the rake. Like, his functional point that he should be owned is not 0. But it's not going to be the whatever 35% he's. It obviously will depend 1 day, 2 day showdown. What have you?
Let's talk about the rest of this Warriors team. So you touched on Wiggins, who got the Luka assignment, which he's already playing strong minutes anyway, but should help his minutes even more. Sure. And on the opposite end, Luka has been guarding him, and we've seen teams go at Luka on the defensive end because why wouldn't you when Dorian Finney-Smith's a plus defender, Reggie Bullock's a plus defender, etc.
Right.
So.
And you want to tire him out. So it's a part of the plan there is. And
that's what they did with Chris Paul against Phoenix. Right. And people, Chris Paul's playing hurt. I was like, he might have been, but he's also looks just tired because Jalen Brunson and Luka were like backing him down almost every other possession.
Yeah, I gave Luka a 10, and I'm really worried about him. And I still gave him a 10 because how high he projects relative to everyone.
You worried about this illness at all?
Yes. Like everyone knows, like, Utah flu game Jordan stuff. Sure, that could happen, but
pizza. Pizza game.
Poison pizza. Apparently, that was my favorite theory there. But so yeah, the thing is, so when you look at other guys who have been assigned in this series, in this postseason to guard Luka Doncic, or even through the regular season, but if you look at McCall Bridges and Jay Crowder or Royce O'Neal or some of these guys, what's really relevant and people don't seem to understand is all those guys are better defenders than Andrew Wiggins, but Andrew Wiggins is so much better of an offensive basketball player that he's making Luka work on the other end. So hiding him there doesn't work that well. So Luka ends up guarding Wiggins because you can't put him on Draymond, because one of the reasons Draymond is amazing is they would destroy them in pick and roll action.
Yeah.
You can't put Luka on Draymond. He can't guard Looney because Luka, he's going to get drag screened, and Looney's going to set somebody off the ball screens. Like they will beat their ass if they try to put him on Looney. So he kind of has to guard Wiggins. And so I think they correctly put Luka on Wiggins, but Wiggins made him work that. I mean, it's just a really great, fairly humble, but Wiggins was running this game on both ends of the court for he was leading the Warriors in scoring for a large portion of the game, making Luka work on that end. And obviously on the other side of the court, doing a great job, especially when the Warriors were not switching pick and rolls when they ended up with Wiggins and Curry or Wiggins and Poole on defense. So they weren't switching that pick and roll D, and so Wiggins had to push through all those extra screens. Tremendous. I mean, it's just an outstanding game by the Warriors. Due credit to our friend Brandon Katz, came out and said, I don't think Dallas can hang with this team. I had the Warriors in 7. I heard of the 8 expert opinions I've heard, I think I've heard no one better than Warriors in 6. I think Warriors in 7 was the most common. I think it was Nate Duncan who picked Dallas in 7. Dallas is doing a lot of good things that should help them in this matchup, but like every game, this was a blowout, and they got absolutely demolished in that game. Them being at home obviously helps them a lot, but they do get 4 of those games at home, so that in theory would be enough. A lot of things went extremely well for Golden State, but most of the credit was the fact that they were incredibly active. They didn't let Luka, there's so much to talk about here. I found this fascinating. So Kevon Looney is a really good play in this match. And we got to talk about Looney. And Steve Kerr talked about how he was going to have a big role to play here. And one of the reasons is the fact that Luka is not that fast. Mm-hmm. So you can play Kevon Looney because he's not going to do well against Luka, but he can kind of hang in there. Luka is in this way, say James Harden. Kevon Looney can guard those guys. You can put him out on the court for 25 or 30 minutes, and he can switch and actually manage these guys to some degree, especially when you're going to have Draymond behind you.
And the other thing is, if Dallas is going after Jordan Poole on the defensive end, and thus his minutes are coming down because of it, it's not like that. They have Otto Porter, they can play, sure, but they also don't have Gary Payton yet. So it's you're kind of running out of players to play, and all of a sudden Looney's been thrust into 25 to 28 minutes, and he's always been a super underrated fantasy producer because he plays on Golden State, and he's not he's not he's not JaVale or he's not Hassan Whiteside when they get starts or extra minutes, but he's 0.94 fantasy points per minute. He's always been a very underrated facilitator, and when you're playing with this Golden State team, you're going to walk into assists. I think he's more often to get 2, 3, 4 assists than
you want to see the ball movement. One of the reasons this game is outstanding, and obviously you know
I love watching
Curry to pick up more of this. Yeah, they're a beautiful team to watch. But I think the assists for the starters on Golden State were 4, 4, 4, 3, and 3. Yeah, which is good luck. So Looney is a very good hand, but if he was playing the Hawks, you can't play him. Trae Young will kill him. Right. If you're playing Grizzlies, he didn't get a ton of time because John Morant is going to kill him. But he can guard James Harden and he can guard Luka Doncic. They're slow. I mean, they're not slow or faster than I am, but they are not so fast that he can't manage them a little bit. So and that's really ends up being people say, what is the difference between LeBron, prime LeBron and Luka? That's really the thing, that LeBron had that insane year, and he's a little slower now, but he's still faster than Luka. And he used to be ridiculous fast. One of the reasons LeBron was insane is that he was almost John Wall fast at 6'8", 265, which was just so he could do all the stuff that Luka and James Harden do with the trips and the step back, and all the various ways to draw fouls. And then additionally, could just run 300 miles an hour when Wilt Chamberlain style. And it was okay, I'm officially out of things that you couldn't put. So no matter what you did against him, and he was smart enough to know, Oh, they're playing Looney. I'm just going to run past him. Oh, they're playing this guy. I'm just going to step back. Like, so the combination of those things plus being an incredibly smart human being. Yeah, I don't know how that turned into a LeBron's a great thing, but yeah.
I mean, I'm all here for LeBron talk. He's my favorite player ever. So, got a couple questions in the Discord. So, Ricky asks, any love for some garbage time only punt plays over Frankie and or Damian Lee? In example, Josh Green, Bielitsa, Jonathan Kuminga. So that's the first question. Kuminga got all that production in that fourth quarter, by the way, right? Like
he got what?
Everything that Kuminga did.
Yeah.
Was he played 5 minutes and it all came.
Yeah, he played all right. So their blowout run was 4 guys who only played.
If this game stays close, he's not in the rotation. So I don't even know if it's enough. Like that game's got to be out of, because like you said, Dallas still played some of their guys 30+ minutes.
No Gary Payton, no Iguodala.
Yeah, exactly.
In the rotation. So someone asked me before the last show, is Bielitsa going to play? And I said no. They don't put him on the court. Like Kuminga would go in before Bielitsa in this matchup, where he could be, believe it or not, a guy that they like some of the things he does defensively and could try to step up to Luka, and that's something Steve Kerr has talked about. So he had a chance, but Bielitsa had no chance. Kuminga doesn't have a chance. The only one of their blowout players who also played in regular time was Damian Lee, who played 7 minutes, I think, previous to the blowout time. So do I have any love for those guys? Well, I would say, like, do I have any love? Yes, I have some love, and by that I mean they are not completely out of play. If you want to play, I think Jonathan Kuminga is the best guy there. He's going to be the best blowout run guy that I'm going to project in that environment. You could try Marquise Chriss. You could try Trey Burke, who had, I think, the most fantasy points in the blowout period. I think he had like 10 fantasy points.
Yeah, when he's on the floor, he's chucking.
He's gonna chuck. Yeah, he took 4 shots in his 6 minutes or whatever it was. Those guys are in play, but it needs to be an ass whooping, and it shouldn't be that much of an ass whooping.
And it's tougher too because, like you said, like even last game, Luka was like 34.5 minutes. Like you're in the Western Conference Finals. Like it's going to take a lot longer for Jason Kidd to just kind of.
You need to be down 38 at the start of the fourth.
You need to be like Game 7 Phoenix type, almost bad.
Yeah, it needs to be. And yes, so. Do I have any love? Sure. But in my first 10 lineups, I probably have none of those guys.
Here's another question. Draymond, Wiggins, or Poole, if choosing one?
I'm more frequently than not going to play Draymond. It's a really good spot for Draymond.
I just love Draymond.
It's the opposite. Like, I obviously love him as a player, but there's just really significant upside there. He can end up getting double-digit dimes.
So
for him was
I wrote about Draymond. Interesting numbers here in the playoffs. He's averaging 13.5 potential assists per game. Luka's at 13.6.
Yeah.
He's right there with Luka.
Yeah.
17.3 assist points created per game. Luka's at 17.5. And then the playoffs, over 34% assist rate, 25.5% rebounding rate. And I say this for Draymond all the time. If he takes 7 to 10 shots, the upside is tremendous because the peripherals are always going to be there.
Yeah, he still just maths out very good. I don't think he's as owned as he should be, and you're just getting there ahead of time. Like, all this is ownership based. Clay's a bad play tonight. Why? Because he's still going to be owned as if this is a decent spot for him. It is not. Draymond's a good play tonight. Why? It's going to be owned as if this is a neutral spot for him. It is not. He's going to be very good. He only played 29 minutes in that last game, which is great. He's a little fresher today. Had 4 fouls in that game, so that cost him a minute or two, but they didn't need to push him out there any longer. So most often that spot will be filled by Draymond for me. There isn't a lot of can't play with. Like someone said, can I play Looney and Draymond? Of course you can. Looney's so cheap, doesn't even matter. Sort of your yeah, I mean, if you were looking for the only guy you would say don't play with Looney would be Poole, and I just don't believe that. It's a 1-game slate or a 2-game slate, and Looney is so cheap that I find it moot whether or not he's in your lineup for any of these considerations. He's demonstrably and easily everyone have a drink.
Do you think
after the value plays?
Do you think if they continue to find success against Jordan Poole on the defensive end that like Looney could, like, because we didn't see Looney play the fourth quarter obviously, but he played the entire third alongside Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Is there a scenario where Kevon Looney still closes a close game?
Yes,
I agree.
Absolutely.
So like his floor for minutes,
like all it takes is like Kerr is not putting up with Poole screwing up cards. Like, I don't think it is likely. If you're telling me the score of this game is 108 to 108 and there's 2 minutes left, do I think Poole is in? I would say yes, but I think it's 70%. Like, I don't think it's 95%.
Right,
It would
I
not be
agree.
weird at all for me that they leave Looney out there. You just don't. You don't need Poole on this team. Like, you don't have. Like, you can get there with the offensive tools you have out there. Now, it just does a ton for you. It's similar to having, say, Maxi Kleber out there again for the Mavericks. The reason they want him is it just makes defending the team so much harder. So when you put Poole out there instead of Looney, it's very, very difficult to guard them. So I think he's out there most of the time. But yeah, him playing 23 minutes or him not closing would not be a shocking scenario. All it takes is like him making 2 mistakes and just getting torched by Luka a couple times.
Right.
Like, enough of that shit. Like, but he was not that bad. Like, he gave up a couple extra points. I think he was a plus 15. That's fine. That's lowest of any of the primaries on Golden State, but he was not execrably terrible. He's the worst guy getting a lot of time on defense on that team pretty significantly. Otto isn't great in space. Otto Porter Jr. is not a good isolation. He's a great help defender. He's not a very good out in space defender, but he's still well better than Poole. So your bad 3 defenders on this team are Otto, kind of in some situations, Steph, and Poole. So
a couple questions before we get to the Dallas side.
Sure.
Josh asks, favorite captain for tonight?
Probably Draymond. It's going to be Draymond or Looney or Luka. Like, Luka could be better than this. We can certainly be concerned about Luka's health issue, but like you mentioned, the potential assists and how he similar is to Draymond. Luka had something like, even in his truncated time in this game, I think 16 potential assists in that first game, and they converted on whatever it was, 5 of them.
Right. Obviously, when they shoot so many threes, if they're having a bad shooting game from 3, Luka's assists are going to come down because that's so much part of their offense. So, also, would you Maxi Kleber at captain?
Sure, absolutely. I would love Maxi Kleber at captain.
Let's talk about Maxi. Let's talk about Dallas.
So, like, specifically, I have Maxi Kleber for 28 minutes and 20 fantasy points.
What was it? He picked up 2 fouls in his first rotation, and then sat the rest of the first and picked up a third like relatively early in the second, I believe.
And in my opinion, they should have still played him, but that's a thing. But he is critical for them on both ends of the court. He's a much better switch defender than Dwight Powell. He lets them go 5 wide on the offensive end. Like, he's a critical guy in this lineup. I understand why they don't start him, and I think that's fine. I don't think they're going to turn that around, but he's just like an infinitely better Davis Bertans or an infinitely better Frank Ntilikina. Like, he's Davis Bertans plus Frank Ntilikina. That's actually not bad. That's kind of the idea. Frankie got, part of his extra time did come on his back, on Kleber's foul trouble back. But a lot of it just had to do with the fact that the Warriors' defense was so remarkably exceptional in everything. Like, the Warriors had, I think, 7 blocks. Dallas had 0. Like, the Kleber is, among other things, their best rim defender. Like, it's like, they want him out there. Now, he's not super fantasy guy, even when he's out there, but he's cheap, and I don't think he gets owned enough, and he's 41 to 4,600, depending what slate you're buying in on. And, I think he's absolutely fine to get. He's the obvious Kevon Looney pivot.
Yep.
I have Kevon Looney for 4.25 more fantasy points. He's been around 24 in my projections all day. It's a very good projection for his price on a small slate. No problem with any amount of Kevon Looney you want to play. It's not a matchup where he should be able to be played off the court.
Tyreek asked thoughts on Dinwiddie in general tonight.
Yeah.
Been shooting better lately, just has to get the minutes consistently.
Yeah, there's I don't have a great take there. Like, again, I usually have him at 25, 26 minutes, projects for less than a fantasy point a minute, but like 22.5 to 23. He's 5,200. It's been one more game since he had an outstanding game. So sure, you can go there. You need Luka foul trouble, Brunson foul trouble, one of those guys getting injured. There's just a number of ways in which he gets there. So it really comes down to a question of how owned do you think he is? I think he ends up being owned 24%. That's probably about what he should be owned. So, okay. Like, I don't have a great take because, like, there's an upside, there's a floor. Really need some bullshit to get there, but he's not so expensive that, if he gets a fairly pedestrian number, he totally screws you. Like, I don't have a great take there beyond, yes, he certainly makes a bit of sense. I could talk for a bit about his drive game and where he ends up, where he tends to short the dunker side and how but it doesn't really change the fantasy projection of it in any way. So I'm fine with Spencer Dinwiddie would be my quick there. Yeah, I liked Dorian Finney-Smith before game one. He did not have a good game either end of the court. Like, I was worried about Dallas they looked, maybe it was hangover from winning the series. They didn't, I don't come up with excuses for him there. But a lot of the guys on that team did not look really good on either end of the court. I liked Dorian Finney-Smith a lot. He canned a three-pointer in the first minute of the game. I was like, oh, here we go, because I had postulated, just because I like it when someone says, I think you're wrong, and has a good argument before it. So if, and there's guys in our chat like Herm and other guys who frequently say, like, I think you're wrong about this and this is why. And I love that. I love to have a conversation. We had our friend Brandon Katz on YouTube not that long ago say, I think you're wrong about Jordan Poole versus Draymond Green for this reason. And it led to a great conversation. And despite having a huge ego, I'm not always right. I'm not close to always right. I do think I'm right more often than most people who do this job, but that means I'm right 88 times out of 100 as opposed to 82 times out of 100 for those guys. There's still a real chunk of times I'm wrong, and I'm not going to know about that unless you all tell me. So people in chat, people in the YouTube chat, people on Twitter, I encourage constructive criticism. Gainsaying every single thing I say, where like I host a show and I say 28 things and you write the opposite 28 times, generally makes you look pretty stupid because, again, I'm right more often than not. And so you're going to be wrong more often than not. And it means that I can't address it. And you just seem like an asshole who's trying to pick a fight. So by all means, a comment or two designed to keep me on my toes. The very best of things.
Speaking of Dorian Finney-Smith, him and Reggie Bullock, like, thoughts on them? Like, for me, this seemed like a series going in where, like, we could see some Dorian Finney-Smith at the 5, but with Kevon Looney starting and playing 25, 28 minutes potentially, that might not be as, as likely of an outcome. But, like, Dorian Finney-Smith, at least on, like, a showdown slate, like, he's not that expensive for somebody that's going to walk into 40 minutes in any competitive game. Same with Reggie Bullock. It's just... Yep. And I think Finney-Smith is I usually lean towards him because he has a better chance of walking into peripherals, at least rebounds. Mm-hmm. But for both of them, you're just hoping they can hit the open threes that they're going to see from Luka. But I think they're both extremely viable. Like, and then like there's Davis Bertans who, still getting his 12 to 15 minutes. I
slightly prefer Dorian Finney-Smith to Bullock. I have projected slightly higher. He is more expensive by a little bit, but he's still, even point per dollars, is a nominally better play for me, and I think he's a little less owned. They're both very owned, depending, again, 1 game slate, 2 game slate. But I have Bullock being a little higher owned. So I would probably rather go to Dorian Finney-Smith. Again, neither of them are great or terrible. They'll be significantly owned because they carry a very reasonable floor. But generally, I'm a fan of most of the Mavericks today. In some way, Luka obviously is Luka. I have no idea how sick he is, but Brunson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Dinwiddie, Bullock, especially Kleber, I generally like those players at their prices. They are pretty cheap, and I generally like those guys obviously more than Clay, but very close for me when you compare them to Wiggins, Poole, guys there. And looking at the 2-day, it's even more interesting. But I hesitantly probably would rank them Kleber, Finney-Smith, Bullock, Dinwiddie is roughly the order I'd want to play them, with no real differential between the 3 of them after Kleber.
I missed this question from Phil Connor's Toaster. I'm not really finding much in the way of player combos. I'm going to avoid beyond Kleber and Powell. Pricing seems squishy enough to ignore correlation concerns for pretty much the entire pool. Thoughts?
Smart. I don't disagree with you. And again, there isn't a ton of guy A or guy B plays. Like, there's enough minutes where Kleber and Powell can be good. They just say, fuck it, we're not doing any more of this Berton shit. And you get whatever, 21 minutes of Powell and 27 minutes of Kleber. These guys can score a fantasy point a minute each, and you want 100% of both of them in the event that happens. So, like, I don't even know if I'm going off against that one. Like, if you're playing 150 lineups, I don't want Kuminga and Bielitsa.
Yeah.
Like, you really got to work for it. There's not a lot of restriction on this slate, no.
Anybody else from Dallas we haven't touched? I mean, we didn't really touch on Luka, but it's just like maybe he's fatigued or a little bit with the onus that he's dealing with, but like it's just
I mean, he was tired. Like the guys in that game who looked really tired were Luka. Clay for a bit was, I think, more frustrated, but they were just running him all the hell over the place and just not. I mean, he had 0 points in the first half. It's not because the guy can't shoot. Like that's that was a really significant performance. That was part of their goal, and in that way, I was a little bit lucky because I didn't think they were going to go out of their mind. But again, the Warriors were just so incredibly active on defense. There were just so many times when Luka would drive the lane and you'd get Wiggins help back into Looney, and then you would have a Maverick in one or both of the corners, and then the person guarding them being either Steph or Draymond would hard charge the point of entry and try to deflect the passes from Luka out to whomever is spotted up in those corners. It happened several times. And so you had a game where the Warriors ended with, I think, 7 blocks, 8 steals, 10 additional deflections beyond.
Yeah, Luka had 7 turnovers in that game.
So like, due credit, they played an outstanding game. But Kleber going out is a really relevant part of that. And then they shot, like they were not getting great shots, but they got 53s up and made whatever it was, 25% of them. You're just going to lose the math game at that point. So I would expect this game to be well closer, but
definitely hope so. I've been like, it's gotten to the point where like some of these games are on and I'm trying not to fall asleep, and that's not the case when I watch basketball for the most part. But geez, I mean, it's got. I think this game will be close, but more so, I just think that we can't have this streak continue of these blowouts. That's mainly why. But again,
I suspect there is something systemic. There were also more blowouts in the NBA this year than there's ever been before.
Mm-hmm.
Now that was partially where you had teams that were just not fucking trying. You had some Rockets teams and some Trailblazer teams that were just like, we're not even going to pretend. We're going to go, you selling the popcorn, get a jersey. Like there was so that had a lot to do with that, but I really wonder. I don't know. Long COVID, I have no goddamn idea. But it's been mathematically significant, is the way you would put it.
Triple H.
Sorry, I just got a tweet. There have been a lot of different defensive alignments employed here by the Warriors. Another thing they did, being a old team, a veteran team, playing really well together, great coach, everyone knowing each other, is they rolled out a box and one for a bit. They rolled out a 1-2-2 zone. So, they played an absolutely brilliant game. A little extra time off didn't hurt there to plan that shit out. So again, that's another reason I think it would get closer. But they played an absolutely brilliant game. So Warriors fans should be well contented.
Triple H asks, curious for Fanduel Showdown in the 2 utility spots, would you prefer Kleber and Looney or Porter and Poole?
I have to take Porter and Poole if those are my choices. I'm just going to have Poole projected for so much better than those other 3.
Yeah, I think there's just a high ceiling there.
I can't get away from that.
Josh asks also, favorite between Poole, Draymond, and Brunson? I think we're both Draymond, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Draymond is my answer so often. He's just legitimately one of my favorite players in the league, and being the maestro of this offense, he's just in such a good spot. And if, like I said, if he takes 6 to 10 shots in a game, you're golden, because there's a lot of games where he has like 2 or 4, but those games where he takes upwards to 8 or 9 are awesome. That 1-2-2 zone poses some interesting problems for the Mavs offense. It'd be cool if you guys could discuss the defensive fronts of Dubs throughout the Mavs for a minute, please.
I sort of leaned into it a little bit, but there were a number of different ones. Again, somewhat surprisingly, they did not switch the really? I'm sorry. I'm getting tweets that Brandon is embarrassing himself in the YouTube chat again. Brandon, I'm gonna have to perma-mute you if you can't keep the comments to 10% intelligent. Like, again, saying like 3-pointers are really tiring was a pretty good one here. What do we have? Poole was Golden State's best player in the Denver series. No, he might have gotten up to their 3rd best player, which is an accomplishment, but you sound like an idiot. No, he did not get up there. Green is a horrible play as a top guy tonight too, because he has a good chance of being in foul trouble, since Dallas will get calls and he'll be defending Luka a lot. He will probably be defending Luka third most on the team, and I don't know what Dallas will get calls means. Dinwiddie is a good play. He was embarrassed in game one. The whole team was embarrassed in game one, but I guess if you're just looking for reasons to disagree with everything I say, Looney is a good play. We agreed on something. Looney is a good play. Looney struggles against fast lineups and bigger players. So he struggles against fast and big players. He's good against the small, slow players. This is good insight, Brandon. I am glad you are here to help us out. I don't have time to go through everything you're saying here. Now Zach is saying things about, or Brandon is now saying things about Zach. Zach, who works more days than I do, by the way, he's saying come on, Brandon. Like, I keep trying to give you a shot at the beginning. If you want to be critical, that's fine. But when you just literally go, I disagree with everything you say, and some of your reasons are this incredibly off, why do you, don't be that guy. So you want to discuss defensive fronts. There is a lot to discuss here because there are so many of them. I'm trying to understand your goal, Hugo. Like, I just rewatched the game again. And again, there was a box and one there for a bit. They threw the 1-2 at him. But a lot of it was the team didn't like. There was a segment in the third quarter where he just decided to go in ISO a couple times and made a couple very nice threes. Made one going to his right, which is tougher for him. Luka prefers to shoot going to his left. But primarily, they tried to get him tired. They stuck Wiggins on him most of the game. They didn't switch pick and rolls where you had, say, Wiggins and Poole or Wiggins and Curry on defense. And so they were, that forced Wiggins to push through, but ended up helping because he was able to do that. Your issue is if you can't get over the screen, that they can just get the step back. That largely wasn't an issue, but I don't have any great advice that I can prefer from this. Beyond the fact that it's a fairly tough matchup for Luka, but not preposterous. Again, the one interesting, somewhat different wrinkle here is the fact that Wiggins really is the guy who can tire Luka the most out on defense. So if you push in the fact that he's fatigued there hypothetically, and then the fact that he may be ill to some degree, it's a reason to have concern. He's going to be predominantly owned. He should be predominantly owned, but I don't. Does Boban get any minutes tonight? I would not expect so, sadly. Like, you mean my dog, in which case, he'll get walked.
My goal is the impact, straight up. Dubs leaning into one over the other from game one seems likely, and I'm especially curious if you think one will be the ultimate primary in game two in terms of defensive fronts. Do you think there will be something they took from game one that could be like the primary defensive front, I guess is what he's asking.
Okay. And again, we've actually arrived at lock here, so I apologize for not understanding sort of what you're going at. No, I don't have a great sense that this was so good they're going to do that. And I think Dallas is going to change up their offense pretty significantly. Like, I think they will bum hunt Jordan Poole a little bit more. That was really the only time their offense looked terribly capable and cromulent, to use our favorite word. So and that will force a reaction. But all all the various defenses we're looking at here end up having a pretty large variation of who is on who at any given time. And I guess the goal would be like, I don't think I can turn around and be like, I think due to its success, they're going to run that 1-2-2 zone half the game tonight. And because of that, I think it's a better matchup for the wings and Bullock coming out at the 2-3 as opposed to Finney-Smith playing largely down at the 4. And so I lean more into him. I don't have a take where that makes that much sense because of all the movement on offense and all the switching on defense. So.
All right, well, we are at lock. Any other closing thoughts, questions, Eddie? Excited again, just hoping for this game to stay close.
I believe someone has sent me ownership, so I will quickly read some ownership if that will.
Go for it.
Let me just so we can see. I didn't really say how I thought many people were going to be owned, but we will see how we did. Unihu. What do we have here? This is the 555K shooter. That's a hell of a thing. That's interesting because to me, offensively, they would have shown much better if they had hit the open shots. Yes, I think Dallas can stick with an offensive game plan from game one and have success if they hit the open threes. Yeah, I mean, they got 53s up. They were not.
They're going to get open looks.
Yeah, they were not of what I considered an overly poor quality of shot. So you would expect them to make more than, I think they were 11 for 48. Does that sound right? 11 for 49. All right, numbers in. Luka, 78%. That's about right. He was a little more than that last time. That's come down a little. I'm slightly less confident. We know a little more. Like Looney is much higher on because he's a good value piece. He was around 50 last time. He's 66. Steph Curry, 65. That's fine. Wiggins, 50. That might be a little high. But this is all about what I expected. Porter, 47. Bullock, 44. Draymond, 40. Clay, 32. Yeah, I would have 0 and make that my stand, but we'll see how it goes. Jalen Brunson, like the commentary that this is a good matchup for Clay is a name. There is literally, by the way, you like suggesting that I was wrong. I have heard 20 professional basketball analysts and an additional 10 DFS people talk about. I do a lot of research between series, so I have listened to everyone from Windhorst to Hinge to Duncan to Hollinger to whatever. I have not heard a person who I respect yet say this is a good spot for Clay. So just understand, in addition to having no reasonable argument, you are out on an island, and there's 10 just like this is a team that does not give up a lot of threes and does not give up a lot of open threes, and we have a game sample to show that now. So if you have like a reason to play Clay, it is based on, I think they got their ass whipped, so they have to change something, and maybe this will be good for Clay because, especially you, Brandon, you were dead ass wrong the first time, and you should stop humiliating yourself. There's no reason to get beat up in public. Jalen Brunson, 29. That's not bad. Kleber, 25. Brilliant. Let's see. Where are we at? Jordan Poole, 21. That's fine. Dorian Finney-Smith, 17. Like, that's really good. That's what I'm saying. Reggie Bullock, 44. Dorian Finney-Smith, 17. Damian Lee, 13.54. That's it's concerningly high, I suppose, but certainly not out of play. Dwight Powell, 13.3. Frankie Smokes, 10. Davis Bertans, 10. Jonathan Kuminga getting in there at a solid 7%. Nemanja Bjelica at 2%. Josh Green, who did get a few minutes of emergency time, 1.3. Trey Burke, 1.3. Sterling Brown, 0.96. Boban Marjanovic, 0.33. There is the man, Andre Iguodala, 0.04. Tim Hardaway Jr., 0.01. Thank you for playing. We are done, my friend. Excellent.
Interesting. Let's see. Let's see if we have a close game. I'm hoping so. Best of luck on this one-game slate. Enjoy the weekend. Eddie, you're here all weekend, right?
Yeah, I believe I'm doing 3 days in a row. Other people have plans, and so I am going back to back to back.
Yeah, so you'll see plenty of Eddie. I believe you're what? Was Zach on Sunday or with David Jones Saturday?
Zach think I'm Sunday? Actually solo one of these days. I will be all by my lonesome.
So you'll have a lot of Eddie this weekend to break down games 3 of these series. Hopefully we have a good one here tonight. Best of luck. Check out all the great content, FTN Daily, FTN Fantasy, FTN Bets. Shout out producer Fox behind the glass producing for Eddie and myself. Yeah, best of luck. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next time.
Let's get these beans.